Hello, everyone. It is the live show, one of a kind type of show in the true crime community. And what is today's date? July 7th, 2021. I am, of course, Unfound's host, Ed Denzel, accent on the first syllable. How's everybody out there? And we are a little soaked here in Clearwater Beach. But other than that, I think that hurricane loosely termed, Elsa did not do much. I haven't spoken to my landlord who lives down that way, back where I used to live down in Madeira Beach. You remember those days. When Tropical Storm ETA came through last year, where I lived got flooded out. Got, I don't know, a couple feet of water in the place that I used to live in, right on street level in Madeira Beach. And so since then, she's been have to totally doing, everything. It's salt water. It's just a mess. But I haven't had a chance to talk to her today, so I don't know if there was any flooding down that way in Madeira Beach or not. I was up till about 2 a.m. last night, and it was surely windy, and there was a lot of rain, but, looking out here at the Gulf, it didn't seem to me that there was much of a storm surge. It didn't seem to me like the Gulf got any closer to the building, not too much closer. I was looking out here. That way is west, so that is the Gulf. That way is the Gulf direction. This is east over here. This looking into the bay and then toward Tampa, which is way over there. It just seemed like a really, really bad thunderstorm. There was no lightning. There wasn't even any thunder. It was just a lot of rain and windy. There were cars going up and down the street. I don't know. Not that big of a deal, at least to me, but I'm sure maybe somewhere south of me in particular, there might have been some flooding and everything, but that's all that really I have to say about Elsa. Actually, have to admit, a little let down. Not that I want anybody to get hurt, not that I want anybody to get, anything to get damaged or anything like that. But, you hear about these things, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes. I like to see them up close. I experienced an earthquake in 1999 when I lived in Las Vegas. It was October 99 and felt that shaking. I've never seen a tornado, but I have seen some dust devils that were pretty big when I lived in Las Vegas. And so I guess this is kind of my second hurricane, but I think it was barely even a category 1. And I think what the big difference was that right at the last second, as it was coming up parallel to the coast of Florida, it kind of went west. As it got closer and closer to Clearwater Beach, where I am, it went away from the shore a little bit and went out like that. And I think that caused the rain to be a little less. It caused the wind to be a little less. At least I'm no meteorologist, but that's just looking at the path and everything. I think that's the best guess I can give to the reason that it just wasn't as powerful as many believed it was going to be. Now, of course, it did end up going further north. It did come on shore, like where Florida bends and everything, and I'm sure there was some damage and things up there. But in this area, I think it was a little bit overrated. So that's what's going on here. But I was up till like 2 a.m. I would go stand on the balcony over there watching the water and the waves and everything. And then I'd go over here out here by the elevators and watch over this way for a while. It was surely interesting, but I thought it was going to be much worse. So let's see who's in here, and let's get on with this show. Hello, D. Valerie, Linda, Karen, Kathy. How are you, Kathy? Good to see you. Suzanne. Linda says, my daughter's watching Loki, and it's all I can hear. I'm watching Loki, too. I watched the newest episode today, Linda. Good show. I'm not going to give anyway, of course, any details or anything. I wouldn't want to do that. But I don't think it's as good as WandaVision, but I think it's better than Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I think it's in between the two. It's pretty good, though. Hello, Jasmine. Hello, Charlotte. Susan. Yeah, I'll get to that in a second. Thank you, Suzanne. Elsa was no big deal, Valerie. Hello, Cherie. Thank you for moderating tonight. By the way, Cherie, I've been meaning to ask you, have you had a chance to get to those couple things we talked about on Saturday, by the way? Hello, Brandon and Michelle. New to the podcast, new to the channel. Truly appreciate your effort and your craft, Ed. Well, thanks. I think you are new. I've not seen your names in the live show before, so thank you for joining us. Robin says good morning / good evening. Well, good morning, good evening to you, Robin. Hello, Paula. Sweet Berry. Kim. Good very early morning. 2:04 here. Well, Kim, tell us where you are. I'd be interested to know. So you're 5 hours ahead of Eastern time in the United States. I might be interested to know where you are. So, thank you, Sweet Berry. So that's what's been. That was what went on with the hurricane. I was following the track, watching it. It was very similar to kind of the track that Hurricane Irma had in September of 2018. But it did not. On Irma, though, it came on shore south of us, whereas Elsa kept out in the Gulf out there. And then we also had that tropical storm ETA, ETA. And I don't know what it is with these names, Irma, ETA, Elsa, and they all come very close to the Tampa area. It's very interesting to me. The first tropical storm I experienced when I moved here was in June of 2012. Yeah, it was over a year since I've been there. And since I'd moved here. And it was Tropical Storm Debbie. And it was very slow moving. The wind was not crazy, but it was very slow moving. And it just dropped a ton of water. It was like 3 straight days of rain. It was crazy. That was 2012, once again, when I was living down in Madeira Beach. Kim says a town called, oh my gosh, Matubatuba in northern KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, south of the Mozambique border. That is fantastic. Kim, thank you for joining us. Wow, I'm impressed. I am impressed. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for finding the channel. Thank you for listening, Kim, all the way from South Africa. Wow. Hello, Robert. Marlene wishes everybody, I hope everybody had a wonderful 4th. Of course, Becky says hello from me and Poppy. Okay, Becky. Yeah, this past weekend, of course, was July 4th, but on July 3rd, I got in a round of disc golf at a course about an hour north of here in Hudson, Florida. And it was probably one of the wettest rounds of disc golf I've ever played. It did not rain during the entire round, but there were 2 bands that came through that for about 10, 12, 15 minutes, it was just pouring. And so we kind of stopped playing at least a little bit. I had an umbrella, but everything gets wet. Your feet get wet. Even though you're under the umbrella, your discs get wet. The wind is blowing, so it's coming at you from the side. and a round of disc golf, at least on that course, that should only take a couple hours. I think it took us 3.5 hours to play or something. In fact, I had a phone conversation with my assistant Shree, the moderator here in the live show, and we had scheduled to talk at 2 my time, Eastern time on Saturday, and I thought for sure by that time I would be home. Really, when Shree and I started talking, I was only about a third of the way home. So, yeah, it really got delayed on Saturday due to the rain. And I didn't play that well. I finished first in my division, but there were only 2 people in my division, and we tied. So technically, it's a win. That's my 4th win ever. But I would not say that I'm overtly proud of it. So, got to play on Saturday in very, very rainy conditions. And then on Sunday, I played over at Taylor with the club, and I didn't play very well over there, although it was a beautiful day. It was absolutely beautiful there. Sun, no rain, hardly any wind, but I did not play very well. Kim says, I've been listening to since early 2017. Is that right, Kim? Okay, I call myself your number 1 fan. Well, you can call yourself that, Kim. I'm not going to stop you. Well, that's cool. You've been listening since 2017. I just don't know if I've seen you in the live show, though, Kim. So thank you for joining us here as well. D said it's all above normal rainy here in Oklahoma. Yeah. Hello, Eric. So that was my weekend of disc golf. Already talked about Hurricane Elsa, barely a hurricane, really, at least the way it was right here in the Clearwater Beach area. I got down to 175 pounds after my disc golf round on Saturday. I came home and automatically weighed myself, and I was 175.6 or something, which was fantastic. I'm not that now because I've eaten, but I continue to hover in that 176, 177 range, but you can definitely see the downward trend. It's just slowed down a bit, but I'm still feeling very good about it. Kim says, I only have been on the live once before due to time difference. Well, I can understand that, Kim, being late your time, and I appreciate you staying up a little bit. As you probably know, these live shows usually go about two hours. So if you can't hang in for the whole thing, I totally understand. As far as the 4th of July goes, I spent it with my brother and his wife and some of their neighbors and friends. I was down the beach a few miles in a place called Reddington Shores, and their friends have a condo down there. So I was in another condo building on the 4th floor, and the fireworks were set off right at the beach where they were. And so the fireworks must have gone off at about 20 after 9, 25 after 9. And then they were really good. Really good fireworks. Of course, very loud, being that they were so close. And waiting for the fireworks to happen, a couple got married on the beach. And it didn't look like they had any guests or anything. It was just this little archway, constructed, and there was a man of the cloth and a photographer and a videographer, and there were no witnesses or anything. It was just so all these beach people are out there, in their bathing suits and their towels, their tents and everything else. And then this little thing was set up there, and the bride came out in her gown, and it was dragging like on the sand, and the groom, who had on like a white suit, was there, and they did their vows. And when they were done, and everybody on the beach was clapping and everything, and they took a walk around, and then they decided to stick around, and I could see them during the fireworks. The married couple was sitting like on some steps or something down there and watching the fireworks as well. So It was a neat day. I guess my brother picked me up here at about 6:30, and we were down there till after the fireworks, maybe 10 o'clock or something like that. So it was a good time. Ate a little bit. Got to see some people I hadn't seen in a while due to COVID. So it was a good time. Kim says, I don't miss live shows, though, as I download and watch on YouTube. Thank you. All Unfound shows, actually. Well, thanks, Kim. Thank you. So, as some people have already stated, while you are watching this, do not forget to give this video a thumbs up. Whether you are watching it right now live at 9:15 Eastern Time in the United States on July 7th, or you are watching it tomorrow or way down the road, please remember to give this video a thumbs up as you are watching. Hello, Screaming. Somebody brought up Loki earlier. Yes, I've been watching it. I do have Disney Plus, and I watch these episodes as soon as they come out on Wednesday, or not as soon as they come out at 3 a.m. Eastern Time. But when I get up, and actually, I was watching Loki as I was preparing my outline for tonight's live show. So, but I got to watch it. I think it's going very good. Tom Hiddleston does a fantastic job. I think that the show is, although, what episode was it? Was it last week or the week before? Was not that great, but this week's was pretty good. But there's only supposed to be one more episode, so we shall see. But I think it's certainly worth the Disney Plus subscription, and I'm glad I'm watching it. I haven't missed any of these episodes, the Marvel shows that have come out starting at the beginning of the year with WandaVision. I haven't missed any of them. Thank you, Marlene. Linda, The Simpsons have a Loki episode. Isn't that right, Linda? I have to be honest, I haven't watched an episode of The Simpsons in years and years and years. I can remember it at one time. I would not miss them at all on Sunday nights. Now, 10 years maybe. You know, and I know they're still cranking out original episodes. I haven't watched it in years and years and years. I don't know. I don't know if I've grown out of it. I don't know. I have no idea. Probably it also doesn't help that we do the think tank at the same time The Simpsons are on. I think is it still on Sunday evenings, Sunday nights, 8 o'clock or whatever else? I don't know. So Loki's good. One more episode, I guess, next week. And so those are some of the things that are going on and have gone on in my private life since last Wednesday when we all last got together. Linda says no idea. Okay, Linda. Okay. So let's move into some of the other items. As usual, I will start with the poll that seems like I always start there. The Tom Brown poll, everybody gets another shot at it in the discussion group. And it was pretty much the same result that it was the first time around 3 years ago, that a large majority of you in the discussion group have decided that Tom was murdered. Very, very few picked that he committed suicide. Hello, Heather. Hey, there's my assistant, Heather. How are you, Heather? As far as the think tank goes, it was a little more mixed. There are certainly a faction who believe that Tom committed suicide in the think tank, but there's certainly a significant group in the think tank. Once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. If you would like to take part in the discussions every Sunday evening, once again, patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. So we had a nice discussion there. It's not something we got to do the first time around because the think tank did not exist in 2018 when we covered Tom's disappearance. It was a disappearance at the time. And in fact, the think tank did not start until 2019. I think it was started before Tom's remains were found, but still, in the past 2.5 years, we've never devoted a think tank, just to him. Of course, we have devoted some think tanks to old episodes like Robin Abrams when we revisited that disappearance at the end of 2020. And Joshua Guimond, we talked about him in the think tank when we revisited his disappearance earlier this year. But this was the first time Tom's case was covered, although, of course, you would expect in the think tank his name has come up quite a few times. So it's a little more even in the think tank as far as people's theories, in contrast to the discussion group where it is pretty much all one-sided. 97% of people believe that Tom was murdered. And, I'm not going to, try to argue with that. Now, I will tell you that somebody has asked me, it's a question that I did get from Beth. If you're in here, Beth, I don't know if you are or not. She asked me if if I'm going to air my personal opinion on what happened to Tom. And I wrote about it. I had a chance to once again write about Tom's disappearance this week for the Patreon blog. And in fact, I just did the audio version of it today. And once again, if you'd like to read what I wrote, it's patreon.com/Unfound Podcast to subscribe. But I will tell you also that in the blog, I did not write my theory. I did in the original one, but I did not in this one. I took a kind of a little different point of view this time around. However, I will tell you in the think tank, my opinion on Tom's death has changed. Once again, the old saying, as facts change, opinions change. Sometimes, not all the time, sometimes. And I think because of just so many different kinds of disappearances that we've covered, you have to remember something. The span between the beginning of Unfound's existence and the coverage of Tom Brown's episode in June 15th, 2018, that is a shorter time span than it's been between Tom Brown's episode coming out and now. The program was not even 2 years old when we covered Tom Brown's disappearance. We were getting closer to that second anniversary, but we weren't quite there yet. So I'd only covered about 80 disappearances at that point. Well, as you know, we've now covered over 200. In fact, it's well over 200. It's like 215 or something now. So with that, I think because of all this additional coverage for all these new episodes, I have to say that these days I am leaning more toward the idea that he committed suicide. Even though I know what I wrote in the original patreon.com /Unfound Podcast blog back in 2018. I would not argue with anybody about it. I would not, I don't know how firm my position is, just to be honest. The only thing that I would argue with is anybody out there, and we know there are people out there who are trying to sell the idea that Penny and her family had something to do, meaning with it, that Tom actually did get home that night and something happened there. Now, there is that group out there. I'm just not going to talk to them. I'm surely not going to change their mind. They're surely not going to change my mind. And so I don't know what to tell you, and whether they actually really know what happened to Tom. I'm just not having those discussions with those types of people. I'm not trying to stop them. I'm not going to troll them. I'm not going to necessarily block them or anything like that. But I just don't have any time for it. Whereas if people want to try to talk to me about how Tom was murdered by law enforcement, by football players, by this person, by that person, we can talk about that. I can talk to people about that. But that's just not where I am in 2021. And in fact, I haven't been in the murder category for actually quite a while now. Probably number one reason being the meeting that was had in August of 2019. You had all the experts show up and they gave their best opinion, their best advice, their best insight, given their experience in doing investigations. And they just said, we don't know a cause of death. Well, and there's nothing any facts that I know that have changed since then. I know a lot of stuff about Tom's personal life has come out, and I know a lot of new theories have come out, but nothing that has been connected to his disappearance. So that's where I am. Beth, you asked, that's where I am right now. I'm not going to get into any deep discussions with anybody about it. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. So please don't try to change mine. Linda says, Think Tank was a great discussion. Yep. Thank you, Linda. Thank you for joining. You're kind of a newer member too, Linda. Thank you. Kim says, how do the suicide theorists explain Tom's vehicle being 12 miles away from his body? I don't know if we can, Kim. There's a lot of things that can't be explained on all sides of this, no matter what theory. In fact, that's what I wrote about in the Patreon blog, if you want to check it out. There are a lot of pros and cons to any theory out there. So I can't answer that, Kim. Just like people who think that he was murdered don't know how he was murdered. So I don't know. What caused his death, Becky? I don't know. Kathy, Kim, a few of the young men who disappeared, who were featured on the show, disappeared, apparently walked quite a few miles to commit suicide. Martin Roberts from North Carolina, Mason Smith from Utah. Thank you, Charlotte, for those nice words. Kathy, then it's him filling his vehicle just prior to do this. I don't know. It is pretty much mind-boggling. It's certainly mind-boggling. Kim, it's certainly mind-boggling. No doubt about it. But as I've stated in the think tank, as I wrote in the blog, I think everybody, and I don't say this with any pleasure, I think everybody has to start getting very comfortable with the fact that we're never going to know. Ever. I don't want that. But it very well could be. Very well could be. Just because, once again, the best people they had in Texas took a look at this. And I know some of you got to hear the recording. I know a lot of you, if not, I have, but I'm not going to publicize it due to the reason that of how it was gotten by Nathan Lewis, taping it unethically. But I can give you, honestly, my overall opinion of listening to that meeting is that they just aren't sure. The biggest question that continues, and you can hear in that meeting, and we talked about it in the think tank, was the phone. If you ever get to listen to that recording of that meeting, you will hear that they pretty much believe that the phone was planted. Now, of course, that's going to take people in all sorts of different directions, conspiracy, murder, and everything. But they didn't come out and say that. So, now why would somebody plant a phone there and all of that? It's hard to say. And we talked about the search in the think tank, and talked about how that phone was found. I was to the very spot where it was found when I went to Canadian just about 2 years ago. I was to the exact spot. And it was found within 5 5 minutes of the search starting. That's something. So, just don't know. But I think my main reason that I've kind of started to shy away from the murder angle is it's just so overtly complicated, no matter who you try to point the finger at. It's so overtly complicated. And what we know for disappearances that have become murders, and we know, then find out the circumstances, they're all pretty straightforward. Carlos Rodriguez murdering the Zoe campus, even though I know there's a trial coming up, so he's innocent until proven guilty. It's pretty straightforward. Austin Pivo, hard to understand. We still don't know what happened between him and his coworkers, but fairly straightforward. Tyler North, fairly straightforward. Andrea Bowman, fairly straightforward. All of them horrible. But none of them, I would say, are overtly complex. And it just seems that to believe that Tom was murdered, it's overtly complex. So that's just me. Let's see what some people are saying. Yes, the think tank's great. Thank you, Kim. Paula says it was a hard discussion on when it was actually Monday night. Yes, it was, Paula. Yeah, D says some try to say Penny did it, but I don't believe it. Me neither, D. Kim, yes, Ed, I agree. I doubt we will ever learn the truth. I mean, the medical examiner was unable to find cause, manner of death. Yeah. Right. Yeah, Mason has not been found. Sharon, thank you. You're very generous. Sharon, thank you. Sheree says that's my same reason too, Ed. Yeah. Would have been nice for you to take part in the think tank on Monday night, Sheree. It would have been good to see you in there. Yeah, I don't know about, I'm not a Mason Smith expert, Linda. And Joyce, one of my favorite people, Joyce Rivatuzo. Joyce, thank you very much. You're very generous. Thank you for contributing through Super Chat. Now, what you've seen Sharon and Joyce do is they hit the Super Chat button, which is that gray box with the $sign in it. And if you'd like to contribute monetarily to the program while you're watching the live show right now, please feel free to do so. We would appreciate it. So there, Shree's saying simplest explanation, and I think that's a large part of it. I'm not saying I can't visualize circumstances in which Tom was murdered. I can, but every one of them's pretty complex. Whereas with him ditching his vehicle and walking away, although it is certainly hard to understand why his remains were found, at least partial remains were found 12 miles away. It's certainly not impossible for a young man of his age to walk 12 miles. Yeah. So that's all of the Tom Brown coverage. Now, you should know that right before the show started, my assistant Heather, who is in here, told me that there was a grand jury that was held today. But now everybody was thinking it had to do with Hemphill County. But now I'm not so sure. Either way, I don't know anything that went on. So I really don't have much to say about it. We've heard for a while, probably since the beginning of the year, that something was going to happen, and this may be it. But now some people are saying, no, it's something totally different. So I don't know. Either way, there's nothing really to say about it because grand jury proceedings are going to be secret. But this grand jury might not even have anything to, it might not even cover the area where Tom died, which would be Hemphill County. Linda says, I don't know about the case, but wasn't sure how they determined suicide without a body, talking about Mason Smith. Okay. So that is Tom Brown. We'll continue to keep our ears to the ground regarding his death. But I'm going to keep saying it. I think that we all have to get very comfortable with the idea that Tom's death may never be proven, or never, determine why he died, how he died. And even if they determine he was murdered, catching those individuals. I think we have to be comfortable with all of that, never knowing any of that. And that would not surprise me, because I know, even in doing this program, that should I continue to do this program, let's say for the next 25 years, I know there are going to be many, many disappearances that are never going to be solved in my lifetime. That many that we've already covered within the last almost 5 years, that if I live to be, let's say I get to 80 years old, a lot of those are still going to be unsolved. I try not to think about it because it's very sad, but that's what the stats say. So when it comes to Tom's, it's not like, well, we're going to know. We're absolutely going to know one of these days. There's no guarantee of that at all. Jasmine asked me, off the topic of Tom Brown, question, what was your relationship with your bio mom? How did you feel when you met her? Well, I can answer that. I don't mind. I was kind of want to move on from Tom Brown's death anyway, Jasmine, but that's a good way to do it. Maybe first I should tell everyone, if they don't know, yes, I was given up for adoption when I was born on August 1st, 1970. I was then adopted a month later on September 1st, 1970 by Ed and Loretta Densel. And I was raised as an only child. And then in 1994, my bio family was able to track me down through Catholic Charities, which is where I was given up for adoption in August of 1970. I got to meet my biological mother, must have been maybe June of 1994, Jasmine. And how did I feel when I met her? I know this is going to sound weird. It really wasn't that big of a deal. I remember I had already met my brothers and my sister, and I was going over to my sister's house. She lived about an hour and a half away, and I knew that my biological mother's was going to be there. Her name was Suzanne, and I knew she was going to be there. And I can remember kind of just walking into my sister's house, and she was there, and we just started talking. I will admit that in knowing her from 1994 until she died in 2018, so that'd be 24 years, I don't know if it ever truly registered that she carried me for 9 months in her body. I don't think that still has ever registered, really. But she and I got along great. She's very easy to get along with. Suzanne was a character. Very funny. Had her, as she died, she was 88 years old. She had her mind very quick up until the day she died. She did die of cancer. But I don't remember being that nervous meeting her or anything. And it's no surprise, because if any of you were to know my biological family, they're very easy to get along with. They love to talk. They love to have a good time. They're very laid back. They're very social people. In fact, way more social than I am. And maybe that's a little of maybe the Densel side coming out. I don't know. But I have to say, Jasmine, that I got to meet my biological father, by the way, as well. I would not say that I got to know him as well, but spent a lot of time talking to my biological mother, Suzanne. She and my mom, whose name is Loretta, Got along great. They went on some vacations together. They came out to see me in Las Vegas together. They were very close. The woman who gave birth to me and the woman who I call my mother, Loretta Densel, were very, very close friends. They became very, very close. And it was 2018 was a rough year. I lost probably the three most important women in my life that year. My biological mother, Suzanne, died in March. I went up to her funeral. And then my best friends, the Karastori brothers, Doug, Todd, and Brad, they lost their mother, a woman who I was very close to. She died in, was it June or July of 2018? And then my mother died in November of 2018. It was a bad year. But, Suzanne Joyce, great person. She was very nice to me, but my brothers and my sister will tell you she was really tough as a mother back in the day. And, she was only 4'9". The only time she was ever over 100 pounds is when she was pregnant with her 4 kids. She was very tiny. So, very independent. In fact, I see, when I think about myself, I see a lot of the qualities that she had are a lot of the qualities that I have. Very independent. Did not suffer fools kindly. Had the ability to just not hear people. Just let one things go in one ear and out the other. A little bit aloof, which is certainly what I am. I have a lot of the qualities that I think that my biological mother had. So I hope that answers your question, Jasmine. D says, I'm doing a Facebook Live this Sunday on the case. I'm scared. On what case, D? You're going to have to tell us about that. Gianna, the grand jury was in Gray County. According to the Texas Department of Public Safety, the Gray County Sheriff, Michael Ryan of Pampa, has been indicted for the offense of abuse of official capacity. Man, these sheriffs in these counties got to get it together. Jana, thank you. Yana, thank you for giving us that update. Thank you. Still talking about Mason. Jasmine says, thank you for answering. My mom adopted my aunt after her mom died. Jasmine, if anybody knows how sometimes adopted kids meeting their biological families doesn't go well, I certainly know about that because I've known many adopted kids in my life, both in Leechburg and then when I went to college. And in fact, a woman on my trivia team is also adopted, and she just got to meet her parents within the past year. And it's been fantastic for her. She was telling me about it about a month ago. So happy for her. It's going very smoothly. It's fantastic. But really, most of the people that I've known who have met their biological family, it's not gone well. So I feel very fortunate. But I think the reason it has to do with just everybody involved. Between myself and my parents, who were very, very open when they found out that my biological family was looking for me in 1994, they could not have been more ecstatic. And then them all getting together, and my dad was just over at my sister's. Was it for Memorial Day or something? And I'm not even there. My dad's going over to my sister's. This is the way this all just everything came together. And that has everything to do with the people involved. Mike, do you have any thoughts on the use of unethical tactics, lies, or deception to obtain confessions, find a missing person, or solve a case? Or would it always just depend on the circumstances? I perfectly believe the police are absolutely allowed to lie to suspects to get them to say stuff. I don't think that's unethical. So, There are things you're allowed to do and things you aren't allowed to do. And if the things are wrong, if the things come out in court, then you're just taking the chance that they're going to get thrown out and somebody gets to walk. So I have no problems with police or anybody lying. You know, there's the old prisoner's dilemma, getting one guy to say one thing and getting the other guy to say something else, or however that works. I have nothing against any of that. But I do think, if this is continuing the Tom Brown discussion, I do think what Nathan Lewis did in recording that meeting in August of 2019 was unethical. I don't know if it was illegal. I don't know all the laws in Texas. In fact, I'm sure I know very few of them. And I don't know if it's immoral, but it certainly does seem unethical, because I think everybody's going to that meeting thinking that nothing's going to be recorded. And being that he recorded it, and when it came out, he didn't own up to it, and it took some months, it obviously, he had a guilty conscience about it. So, that's where I am on that. D says, Edward, we got to meet my husband's boy's dad, and one of the kids have not gotten to meet one of the boys, but we will. Tom's. Okay, D. Kim says, I'm also adopted. Wow, I traced my biological family in the 80s, and I'm so grateful I grew up with the parents I did, as I would have never had the great childhood I did. It had my biological mother have kept me. Yeah. You just never know, Kim. You just never know regarding that. At no time did in meeting my biological family was I angry or anything about them giving me up for adoption. In fact, I have to admit, I was the least curious adopted kid you ever want to meet. Why that is, I don't know. But I don't think that I would have ever looked for them. I don't think that and that's nothing against them. I didn't know some of them existed. So, but in the end, maybe, it certainly is good that they found me. Let's move on. I have a funny T-Mobile story. I already kind of wrote about it a little bit in the group and on the page, but for those of you who haven't seen it, having an issue with my phone, which is, where is my phone? Is it here? Oh yeah, it's right here. My LG Velvet phone right here, that when I save contacts, they don't stay saved. If somebody's phone number and then I try to attach a name to it, the name, it saves, and then like an hour later, the name goes away. And so I called T-Mobile, and I think what we decided is that I have so many contacts in this phone, the SIM card, doesn't have any more room on it, and that's why these names aren't getting saved. We'll see. But when they passed me from the first person I talked to the second person, it was a unique conversation. And the guy was perfectly friendly, and we often suspect here in the United States that maybe these people aren't also American citizens. And I know T-Mobile is not an American company, and I really don't care. As long as they're helpful, I don't care where they are. But in talking to him, he was being, I guess I would even say, overtly friendly. And at the end, though, and he was very helpful, and we're, very courteous, and I have no problems with T-Mobile. I've been a T-Mobile customer for about 18 years. I have no complaints about them at all. And even when I got the first new phone and it didn't work that well, I got another one, and this one's been great. As we were hanging up, and I throughout the conversation, I had to talk to this guy for maybe 10 minutes. It did feel like he maybe knew me more than maybe a tech person should. Not that he said anything personal. It was just a different kind of conversation. And then right at the end, as we were just saying goodbye and everything, and he said, by the way, You're awesome. Thanks. I didn't know what to really say. Thanks. And it wasn't until I hung up the phone, it was like, I think he's an unfound listener. So if you're out there, if you're watching tonight, Tech Guy, or whatever else, thank you. And in fact, I will mention it on Friday's episode. I've already recorded most of Friday's episode. I have that included in the Unfound news section. So if he is an unfound listener, he's going to hear it. So it was pretty, it was a unique experience. I think this guy was certainly in another country, like Kim is in South America. Of course, once in a while we have Louise in here, who's from United Kingdom. We even have people from Australia and Hong Kong, who I know have tuned into the live show here and there. So, but he said that, by the way, you're awesome. I was thinking, oh, maybe. I don't know why I would think otherwise, but I just automatically go to probably an unfound listener. So it was kind of neat. Maybe that's not it at all, but that's the way it seemed. Kim says, Ed, don't get me wrong. I would have never been angry with my bio mother. I was just lucky enough to have been given to an amazing family. Me too. Mike says it wasn't about Nathan necessarily, just a general question I wanted to ask. Okay, Mike. So let's move on. Vanessa Oren. Of course, that's a disappearance we covered later last year. Tinker Lynch, her sister, was the guest. Talked about last week. And in fact, somebody even wrote it up here about Pete Petrie. Somebody wrote it up. I kind of glossed over it. Where is it? I don't see it now, but there seem to be some things going on in Vanessa Oren, the investigation. I talked about it last week. There was warrants served on Pete Petrie's property, and then he ended up committing suicide. And I also know there's something going on because I just happened to see that very, very recently, Unfound got a very, very poor review, like a 1-star review somewhere. And I just happened upon it. As you know, I don't pay attention to reviews. It was just something I happened upon doing something else. And the comment was about Vanessa Oren's episode. So there's something going on there. There are a lot of people, it seems, who are getting very scared about what the police are now doing. And then Pete Petrie committing suicide, etc. So where is this all going to go? I don't know. So we'll just have to see. But it does seem like things are building. And of course, a lot of people suspect that Pete Petrie is responsible for Vanessa's disappearance. So that's one good way as a podcast host to know if something is happening is just to run across a review and see that it was 1 star. And then you see it was about something that's happening in a case. Somebody's getting very nervous. So something is surely going on. People getting nervous. And I have it written in my notes. This may be one where the coverage was done right at the right moment. Of course, it's been like 6 months since that episode came out, but it does seem that, I know Tinker took a lot of what I told her to heart in giving her, some advice. And I think it's also that. I think it's all of that combined. So I'd like to think that some of these things that have gone on is a little bit because of what we did at the end of last year covering Vanessa's disappearance. Marlene, hello again. Had an ice cream break. You're allowed. Had something I ate, hardly at all. Blue Bell. Yep, we have T-Mobile, so excellent service. Yep, 17 years. Wow, okay. Hello, JR. Thank you, Sharon. Silent asked about Pete. Okay, I just did not see it up here. It just seems to me, and of course, a couple weeks ago, it seems we had a troll that wanted to say something about Vanessa's case as well. And I know that Cherie had to block that person. So once again, it just seems, oh, there it is. Silent polls here. Here the update on Pete Petrie. Yes, Silent, I did. There you go. Way back up there. Thank you, Cherie, for pointing out who it was. Something's going on. Just hard to say what. Seems like they're doing work on it, and that's good to hear. JR says, justice for Cassandra Ramirez. Where is John O'Brien? Yeah, right out of New York City, JR. Yep. Her and Chelsea Cobo. Kay says, hello, I'm late. As I usually say, K-Dog, the only person that has to apologize for being late is me. Mike, I know, but it makes you wonder how far we should let it go and how we draw the line. Well, that eventually, as far as unethical behavior, lying, and all those things, Mike, courts eventually decide where the line is going to be drawn. Let me answer another question from Charla. This came from the group. Charla, when deep diving, no. That's Jill's question. Charla asked me, let me see if I can find it now. I thought I copied it. I messed that up. Charla Yvette in the discussion group asked, well, if Charla, I hope you're watching tonight. Have you ever considered allowing guests to share their theories, not the whole show dedicated to it, but a segment? Charla, I actually used to do that. If you were to go back and listen to the very early episodes of Unfound, maybe, I'm not going to say the first entire year, but probably the first 20 episodes or something, I did do that and then decided against it for a couple reasons. First of all, you start allowing people to share their theories, and that's a quick way to get into court because sometimes that's the way the law works. And you never know when you ask them an open-ended question like that where it's going to go. I learned that kind of the hard way, once again, in those first 6 months of hosting the program. So since then, I just don't. We just talk about the facts. Once in a while, I may let them talk about a little bit of a suspicion or theory. In fact, that kind of even happens this coming Friday. But because I'm a little worried about where that kind of question is going to go, I now shy away from it. The other reason Charla is, or Charla, Charla. I apologize if I am pronouncing it incorrectly. I want the listeners to think for themselves. And what I know is as soon as the guest voices his or her opinion on what happened, it's amazing then how a lot of the audience is going to think the same thing. This is one of the reasons I hesitate to voice my theories publicly on any of these disappearances, because I know that automatically a lot of people then start thinking like me. Why? Because they think that I know more than what was in the episode or whatever else, which is usually not the case. It's not usually not the situation. So, and I just want to make sure that people are listening independently. They're coming to their own independent conclusions. I want them to just listen to the guest and try to deduce everything for themselves. That is how the interviews are constructed. And the other point I think, Charla, is that, it's very easy to come up with theories. Now, we do talk about theories in the think tank because that helps us kind of do some brainstorming of all the different possibilities. But forming opinions is easy. Getting new information is hard. And as I've stated many times on this live show before, one of the big problems I have with media in the United States, I know we talk about fake news and media bias and all these things, and I'm not here to get into that, but in all of our media, whether it has to do with crime or politics or music or entertainment or sports, you pick one. The problem is that we have too many people who just want to form opinions. They just want to sit there and spout opinions off. Whereas what we need is more information. And the problem we have in the United States from a incentive point of view is there's more money to be made forming opinions than there is to getting information. Why that is, I don't know. But whereas to me, in any sort of media, I respect people more who get facts and get information, because I know opinions, anybody can do that. Anybody can. And I think this is a reason that we have a little bit of know-it-allism that goes on, at least in the United States. Everybody thinks they know everything. Whereas we should show more respect to the people who are actually out there gathering information. Now, they may be a bunch of no-names and everything, but the only way you can form a decent opinion is if somebody went out there and got the information. So that person who's doing that should be more respected than the person who's just sitting there in a desk forming an opinion. So with Unfound, I think, it's certainly been in one of the ideas that's been in my head for a very long time. That's one of the reasons that Unfound has been created the way it is. Very little theory, very little opinion. Okay. Now, I do have missing persons theory in general, which are kind of like learning tools, rules that you can apply that I've talked about many times with Dr. Telesco. I've written about them. I've talked about them here that you can apply Unfound Now, for example, that theories, missing persons theory as to how to, like music theory or any economic theory, but that is in the vein of trying to establish principles on how to learn more. Whereas the theorizing that I'm complaining about is, once again, like in Tom Brown's case. Well, I think he was murdered. Well, I think he committed suicide. And it just doesn't take a lot of work to come up with opinions, whereas it does it takes a lot of work to gather information. And so that's where I am. So that's one of the reasons that Unfound is crafted the way it is. And you don't get a lot of theories where I come out and say, in an episode, I think that Tom Brown was beamed up to a UFO. That's not what I do. So, Charla, I hope that answers your question. There's several reasons why I don't ask guests their theories anymore. I used to. Don't do that anymore. So, moving on. Let's see what was next on the agenda. Newsletter. You should have received it if you were on the email list last Thursday. Got it done late in the day after trivia, I think it was. Last Thursday, July 1st. So if you're on the list, you should have received it. If you didn't receive it and you think you're on the list, please check your spam folder. And if you'd like to be on the list, please contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Now, the new thing we're doing this month is tomorrow, the audio version of the newsletter will be on the Unfound website, the unfoundpodcast.com. So be looking for that. So if you've gotten it and you haven't read it yet, maybe you just want to go to the website and listen to me read it. And that's what will be happening from now on. So you can be on the email list, get it right at the beginning of the month, or on July 1st, August 1st, September 1st, October 1st, or you can wait a week and listen to it at the website. That's what we're going to start doing on that. That is also something that came from me talking to my former book editor, 2 months ago when we were talking about the program and things that I'm doing. And it's really how it lined up, these new Unfound volumes getting done. Moving on, for those of you who are Patreon members at any level, you will see that the audio blog was done today. So I spent a lot of time at this microphone today. I recorded most of Friday's episode today. And then on top of that, I recorded the audio blog, Tom Brown's, the blog I wrote from Sunday. So I write it and post it, and then I read it and record it and post it. And I got to do that today. So if you are a Patreon member and haven't read my blog on Tom Brown Revisited, you can now instead just listen to me reading the blog. And I think that recording is about 27 minutes long. Puma says, thank you. I love the audio newsletter. Well, Puma, I haven't done it yet, but tomorrow it will be posted. Maybe you're also talking about the blog. This will be, I've been doing that for, I think, about a month now. It used to be I used to just write them, but in talking once again to my former editor a couple months ago, she said, well, maybe you should do those in audio too. And I said, that's a great idea. Let's move on to this. The Find Jody podcast. A couple new episodes have come out, and you know how I always like to talk about those and give them a shout out. The last two, the next to last one was talking to Jody Husentrut's co-worker, Amy Kunis. She was the one who called Jody that morning to wake her up. Of course, Jody was late. There was an interview with her. And then the most recent podcast for the Find Jody podcast was all of the people who work at findjody.com. They had like a second roundtable. They did this once before. And then they did this one on the anniversary of Jody going missing, which is June 25th, June 26th, June 27th. So it's very recent. This episode came out. So I'm hoping that you are following that podcast. And they're doing nice work over there. And in fact, I have to tell you, just within the last two episodes, I've found out a couple things I didn't even know about Jody's disappearance. I don't know how big the items are, but they were a couple things that did not come out in the interview I did with Caroline Lowe the end of last year. So I urge you to check those out and continue to support that podcast. Moving on, I told you last week about this FOIA that I'm filing for that's 628 pages. I can't tell you the disappearance right at this point. But I did get a message today that they are working on it, and they will be emailing it to me sometime. They got the check that I sent them, and I will be getting a file at some point, 628 pages. I'm going to guess it's a PDF file. And that is going to be interesting. I'm very interested to read it. The mother of this missing person is very interested in reading it. She didn't even know it existed. She knew there was a report. She didn't know it was 628 pages. So I just hope it's not a bunch of blank stuff. And I hope it's just not blank page after blank page after blank page, and it's only like 10 pages. Let's hope not. And I want you to know that came out of my pocket to get this. However, I will admit that this mother has sent me some money, not the total amount, but some money to cover some of it. I did not ask her to do that. She absolutely insisted that she wanted to, but I took it out of my pocket first to send to this particular county to get this work done. So should be getting it. I don't know when. I don't know how much I'll be able to talk about it when I do. But I can tell you for sure this is eventually going to be a disappearance that will be covered on Unfound, but we will surely not do that before we get all these pages, and all of those pages can be looked over. When I do get it, of course, I'll be sending it directly to the mother of this missing person, probably also to the sister of this missing person, and also all of my assistants will get it as well, so they can look it over if they have the time. So Cherie, Heather, if you're still in here, you can be expecting it as well. Just don't know when that's going to be. Puma says, I mean, any audio, anything. Don't have time to stop and read something. I can multitask while listening. Well, I like to make things easy on people, Puma. Eric, thank you. You're very kind. Your words, your contribution, you're very kind, Eric. Thank you. Just trying to do the best we can. And I know, every time I say that, I wonder, is Ed just being overtly humble or something? And really, that's just the way I feel. I think that if you get into doing this and your expectations is that you're going to solve a disappearance every week, then you're probably going to be very let down. You have to have, I think, a very realistic attitude toward all of this. And that's something that I had to learn. And as I've stated before, you have to be a happy warrior. Not that you're happy about these disappearances, but you have to be happy just knowing that you're doing the right thing. Because if you're too goal oriented in this, it's very easy to get unmotivated. And I tend to be a very goal-oriented guy, but I have to tell you, I wish I could take some of my attitude that I have toward Unfound and bring it like onto the disc golf course. My attitude with Unfound is that we are doing the right thing here. I don't know how overall successful eventually we're going to be. As I've stated, unfortunately, I believe a lot of these disappearances that we've covered are unfortunately still going to be unsolved 30 years from now. Very, very sad. But still, this work needs to be done. And that's why we do it. We're not in it for the glory. We're in it because it needs to be done with the hopes of some of these disappearances getting resolved, no matter what that answer is. And in doing that, I think it's much easier to be a happy warrior. Where I would say on the disc golf course, I'm also, I'm very goal oriented, and I probably worry too much about the results. I think that if I could be a happy warrior on the disc golf course, like I am with this program, I would probably do better on the disc golf course. But it's just, I have a hard time bringing this attitude to that. So, Eric, once again, thank you. Kathy says, yes, Eric, I've been following disappearances for over 10 years. Well, Kathy, yeah, me too, Kathy. So, so going back to, for example, this FOIA, it's just something you have to do. Now, I will admit, had the report just been 10 pages, then I'd be thinking, of course, it would be a lot cheaper to get, but I'd be like, I don't know how much we're going to get out of it. And you've heard me say many, many times, the thing about FOIAs is you get them and there's just not a lot there. But when it comes to 628 pages, you have to do it, no matter what. I wouldn't say no matter what the cost, but in a reasonable cost. And this probably was a reasonable cost, even though it's not cheap. This is kind of what I mean, that you have to be happy about doing that. You have to be, motivated to do that, even knowing though that spending this money, you just don't know where it's going to go, but you have to do it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah, Eric, you should join us for the think tank. Of course, we had Mike in there. Mike's in here tonight, but Mike joined us on Sunday, which was nice. I'm usually the only guy there, Eric. So if you'd like to join us on Patreon, come on in. The water's fine. Nina says, are you all discussing? We already kind of did that, Nina, at the beginning of this show. I'm not going to go over it again. So you might have to rewind to listen to that. I kind of probably, if you were to go back to about 20 minutes into this video, Nina, is when I talked about it for a while. We've kind of moved on for that, but I appreciate you asking, Nina. So 628 pages, but the funny thing is that's not the only FOIA news I have for you tonight. I mean, things are just crazy around here. Here I am for all this time criticizing FOIAs. But here I am putting out my own money. And once again, as you would realize, 628 pages, not cheap, to get a FOIA for this. And then on top of that, I found out today from one of the think tank members that she has told me that the FOIA that she applied for Rebecca Gary, I told you about that a little while ago, it's in the process of being sent to her, and I think that one's 33 pages. Rebecca Gary, a woman who disappeared, I always get confused, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in 1989. And this think tank member wanted to take this disappearance on. I give this woman all the respect in the world for doing so. And it's a bunch of information that it seems Rebecca's family has never seen before. So we're very excited about that as well. And once again, that is something that, not to brag, but, we talk about people contributing through Super Chat, through Patreon, etc. This, once again, is coming out of the Unfound Bank, known as me, to pay for these things. So I'm hoping that both of these FOIA requests reveal some new information. In fact, I'm going to be very, very disappointed if in 628 pages there's not new information regarding this particular disappearance that I still am not going to mention. So should just never know. Don't do any FOIAs for a while. Kind of downplay them. Kind of say that they're not worth it. And then what do you know? I'm talking about 2 FOIAs in one live show. That's why you never want to be too set in any particular rule. Like, what do they say in Pirates of the Caribbean? They're not so much rules. They're more like guidelines. Kind of the same thing at Unfound. Nina says cops. I know exactly what you're talking about, Nina. Let me take, I still got a few things to cover here, but let me take this question. Of course, Jill, once again, going for best question asker for the live show, going for the award. She got it last year. She's trying very hard to win the award again this year. Jill asked me, when deep diving into a case, what is the difference between a 3-hour episode and a 1-hour episode? What helps you get the details in a case? What cases, now looking back, do you have more questions about? Wow. Jill getting all complex on me. Well, as I think everybody now knows regarding Unfound, the length of the episodes is determined on how long the interviews are. Because the interviews take up, 97% of the airtime. It's just me about 7-8 minutes at the beginning, maybe about 5 minutes at the end, and everything in between is the interview. And the interviews go as long as it takes to cover all the information. And so when deep diving into the case, what is the difference between a 3-hour episode and a 1-hour episode? It's really how much information is known about that disappearance. Now, I don't know if Unfound has any 1-hour episodes. I'd be very surprised. I think maybe the shortest is around maybe an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half. But the difference between an hour and a half one and a 3 hour one, and we have several that are 3 hours, if not over. In fact, I think Cameron Remmers may be 4 hours. It all has to do with the information and how it needs to be covered and how detailed do we need to get into it. Now, for example, the reason that Cameron Remmers was so long, it was a long interview. And then after that, I had a lot of talking to do because there's a lot of work that I did on my own in 2019. Whereas the original Tom Brown episode, of course, what came out this past Friday, the interview, very long. Why? A lot to talk about in Tom's case. A lot. So, really, it just has to do with how much information is out there. We've covered some disappearances where really there wasn't a ton of information. I think that we still did a very good job, but some disappearances, there's no social media to talk about. There's no cell phone information to talk about. There's no video information to talk about. So when those things start adding up, then it's no surprise that the interview is not as long as maybe the average is. But then you have others where you have a lot to talk about. A lot of things going on in the person's life. There's maybe multiple people to talk about besides the missing person. There's a lot of video, just once again, a lot of video information, cell phone information. We talk about the work that the guest has done, and sometimes the guest has done a lot of work on his or her own. So we talk about that. It just depends. So what helps you get the details in a case? Well, it just depends, Jill, once again, on the kind of disappearance it is. What cases now, looking back, do you have more questions about? Well, as I've said, I don't know if this is the way to answer this, but I've said many times that I do listen to some of those original interviews and think, well, you could have done better. I even say that about interviews today, but not quite as much. Of course, we're all human. We can always usually do better. But really, I listened to, once again, I was new to this, didn't have a lot of interviewing people experience, and didn't have my shtick down, what you might call. Didn't have that down yet. And I think a lot of those first episodes have a different tone to them than the program today. So, looking back at those, just sure. Maybe I could have planned out the interviews better. Maybe a different kind of interview outline. Of course, I would like to think that I have a better handle on disappearances in general than I did when I started back in 2016. But I don't think that I want to get into any particular disappearance. How, really try to stay away from that. But I would just put it in the general category that I really don't think that, I really, really, really hit my stride in doing interviews and putting the episodes together until into 2017, probably around when, being the Joyce is in here, around when we covered Peggy and Patty McDaniel's disappearance, around the time when I did the 2-part episode, the Marco Island 3, with the 3 Canadian men who went out in the Gaul, or 4 went out and only 1 came back. It seems to me right in there is when I started to kind of hit my stride on how the program needed to go, how long it needed to be, however long it takes, the tone of it, the questions, the outlines, the template and everything. And I think that's the case with a lot of different podcasts and shows that you may see on YouTube. I know I watch a YouTube channel that has to do with chess. It's called Agid Mater, Agadmator. This guy does a fantastic job in analyzing chess matches. And I take an interest in chess. I have actually 2 chess programs on my phone. And he does a fantastic job with his channel. Very popular chess channel. Agadmator. Agadmator. Well, if you go back and watch the first shows he did on his YouTube channel, they are nothing like what he does now. I mean, he was very serious back then. And I think I don't know, is he in Croatia or something? I don't know. But Serbia, I don't know. But the tone of it has totally changed since the beginning. You could tell early on, not sure the kind of person he wanted to be on there, how he wanted to talk, what he wanted to do. But now he's found what he wanted to do, and it's very popular. Does a fantastic job. That's kind of the way I feel about Unfound and looking back, and starting it out. I think that we still did great coverage back then, but I would also say that I could have been a better host, a better question asker, etc. back then. Alex says Egad Mater is a legend. Is he? So you know who that is, Alex? It's fantastic. If anytime he puts out a video, I'm on it. He does a fantastic job. I think he has a great personality. Very funny guy, but very smart. Hello, everyone. And without further ado, he uses these phrases and everything. Really good, and I have a lot of respect for him. So I don't know if that answers your question, Jill. I just don't want to get into, I guess, yes, maybe some of my opinions have changed, just like in Tom Brown's. Maybe my opinion has changed on Joshua Guimond's after almost 5 years. But most of them, I would say my opinion has not changed. I continue to have a lot of questions about a lot of those cases, all of them, not just the early ones. So there you go, Jill. I hope that answers your question. Let's go back up here. Unfound on the Ground. Speaking of YouTube, the last Unfound on the Ground, which was done at the beginning of June, is now available to everyone. And it's on the YouTube channel. I hope you will check it out. If you are not yet a subscriber to this YouTube channel, please subscribe. Please hit the little bell button so when we upload videos or when we're going live, like with the live show, you will be alerted when that happens. And the most recent, we now are into number 10. Unfound on the Ground, but I think, as I've stated, we're going to be switching a few things around regarding that program that will be ready for the next one, which is happening later this month. But number 10, the one that came out in June, was the topic was the public perception of disappearances. And if that topic interests you, please go to that show, that video here right on the Unfound Podcast YouTube channel to listen to it. My assistant, Dr. Eric Grabowski, is the host, and they had a good discussion regarding public perception of disappearances. Let's move on. Hello, Joe. I just answered. Hello, Joe. I just answered your question. So, sorry, Jill. Maybe I should have waited a couple minutes. And Shree says, Ed, I'm going to have to go in the next few minutes. I'll tell you why tomorrow. Okay. You got to go. I'll keep my eyes open. If there are any trolls that come in, hopefully not. But I understand, Shree. You got to go. You got to go. Let's move on to this. As I've stated many times, there are a few reasons we don't cover missing children disappearances on the program. I kind of shy away from them. Of course, We did cover the disappearance of Nylene Marshall a few months ago, but unique circumstances. But this particular story illustrates why, in general, we stay away from them. Maybe some of you saw this. The Virginia parents face charges of concealing a body after they left the remains of their son 4 in their freezer for 2 years after he died. Did you see this story? It's very sad. Cops found Eileen Adon Weaver, 4 years old, when they searched the family's home near Richmond, Virginia, on May 4th after a tipster said his body may be hidden there. Cassine Weaver and Dina Weaver have been arrested and charged with conspiracy to conceal a body and failing to render aid to a child. Cassine was also charged with concealment of a body, domestic assault, and malicious wounding of an adult woman after he allegedly beat his wife. Details about the boy's death were not immediately available. Court documents also detail claims by Dina Weaver that she suffered a history of physical and mental abuse at the hands of her husband. One of the reasons, as you've heard me talk about before, one of the reasons we shy away from covering child disappearances, when I would say by that is, 4-year-olds, and, 10 years and younger, 11 years and younger. Of course, it depends on the circumstances, but in general, we stay away from them. For one, this is a good example of why we stay away from them. Because most of the time, the parents are the guilty party. And so it makes it very difficult to try to talk to somebody you can trust when you know so many times that the parents are the guilty party. So you very well may have a father or mother on the program who actually may be the best suspect. Of course, they're claiming they didn't do anything, but you just never know. And I'd like to stay away from having people on the program who are later found out to be guilty. Now, granted, we had Steve Pankey on the program, and I think that his trial is coming up later this month, by the way. But I would like to leave it at Steve Pankey. I don't want to do any of these interviews for the episodes that come out every Friday with you thinking that this person I'm talking to is an innocent person, and then somewhere down the road you find out that they lied about the whole thing. So we're very, very touchy on this. Now, what makes this all interesting, this topic interesting to me, is because I think I can reveal this without giving too much away. That this FOIA that I'm applying for, that's 628 pages, is the disappearance of a child. It's probably even more shocking to you. So, we'll just see. That's why, once again, this is a really unique circumstance with this FOIA that I decided to get involved in. But once again, Virginia parents face charges of concealing a body after they left the remains of their son 4 in their freezer for 2 years after he died. Now, the other thing, that you think about in a situation like this is that why wouldn't these parents get rid of their son's remains, knowing that if the remains are found, that they're going to be in big trouble? This is something that I don't know if I can explain it. It's certainly not logical. This is why I continue to say, and this is one of those general missing persons theories. Once again, not a theory as theorizing what happened to a person, but principles, is that it's hard to apply logic to facts that seem illogical. It seems illogical to me that these parents would keep their 4-year-old son's remains, and everybody thinking that this kid ran off or whatever else, when they know if somebody were to happen upon his remains in their house, in the freezer, that they would be in trouble. Why would they keep his remains? Don't know. It's It's very hard to understand. I think what this also means is that we should also be very open to the idea that there could be some disappearances that we've covered on this program where the suspects have kept the missing person in that house and the person is still in that house, even if the person is an adult. So, these are things that are just hard to understand. And I don't know if I'm ever going to understand them, but we're going to continue to try to learn more about them. And I think even in a death of a little boy like this can help us try to understand this. Just one more piece of information that we can add to all the information that we continue to collect about all certain different types of crimes, mostly disappearances, but even with murders, you can apply things about solved murders to disappearances. And that's what I try to do. Linda says, I would love to see Jalik Rainwalker's 2007 disappearance covered from New York. He was 12 years old. Does not ring a bell to me, Linda. We could certainly take a look at it. Charlotte, there were 2 incidents in the Cincinnati area a few months ago where the parents killed a son and threw the bodies in the Ohio River. Yeah. All these examples are why I generally stay away from young children's disappearances. Gets up to 13 and 14, maybe that's a little different. You start getting down to 11, 10, 9, 8, then it starts to get real dicey for me in making a decision. Charlotte says, as far as I know, their bodies have never been found yet. Well, Sweetberry, was there an arrest made in the Rainwalker case? I just don't know. Obviously, Linda and Charlotte seem to know more about it. Jalik's case was so horrible. Linda, no arrest was made. So there you go. So, Eliel, E-L-I-E-L, Dawn Weaver, 4 years old, missing for 2 years, and he was in his parents' house in their freezer all this time. Now, the other story that caught my eye since last Wednesday that I want to talk about. Have you all seen this news about this murder that happened on a golf course in Georgia? Going to read a little bit about it, and then I will just give some opinions on it. A Georgia golf pro was gunned down on the course where he worked because he stumbled upon a crime in progress, police said Tuesday. Eugene Siller was shot in the head on Saturday on the green of the 10th hole at Pine Tree Country Club in Kennesaw near Atlanta, the Cobb County Department said. 2 other men were found shot dead in the bed of a white Ram 3500 pickup truck, which is like a really heavy-duty Ram pickup truck, that was on the green, police said. Police said Tuesday they believe Siller was shot because he was a witness who happened upon a crime in progress involving an unknown suspect and the 2 victims in the truck. No arrests have been made, but police said Tuesday they're following active leads. The victims in the truck don't appear to have any connection to the country club, police said. One of the men was the truck's owner, 76-year-old Paul Pearson of Kansas, and the second victim was identified Wednesday as 46-year-old Henry Valdez of California. So, to put it another way, there is a country club in the state of Georgia where a truck was driven onto the course, onto the green. The golf pro at this course saw it happen, went to find out what was going on. He gets shot, and the person who shot him runs off. Then when police show up to look at this truck, they find the owner of the truck, who is from Kansas. Remember, this happened in Georgia. The owner of the truck, who's 70-some years old, in the bed of the truck, I guess, in the bed dead. In addition to another man from California who was shot dead in the back of the truck. So we got a guy from Kansas and a guy from California that are found in the back of a truck on a golf course in Georgia. And when I guess anybody would have done that. Anybody would see something going on. You go to see what's going on, and little do you ever think that you're going to get shot dead. And I'm sure that's what was going through Gene Siller's mind when he saw this truck. What is this truck doing? Why is this truck riding around this golf course? Now, the hard part to understand is, why would a killer drive a truck onto a golf course in the middle of the day when where other people would be? It is it's a very bizarre crime. Of course, we covered a disappearance from a golf course last year, Gregory Howes in California. Once again, I'll read the end of it. The victims in the truck who were found in the bed of the truck dead. So somebody else was driving this guy's truck. The owner of the truck's dead. He's in the back. The killer was driving the truck. The victims in the truck don't appear to have any connection to the country club, police said. One of the men was the truck's owner, 76-year-old Paul Pearson of Kansas. And the second victim was identified Wednesday as 46-year-old Henry Valdez of California. Now, what's going to get even more complicated if they determine that Paul Pearson and Henry Valdez didn't know each other? What was Paul Pearson from Kansas doing in Georgia? Or are we to think that these two guys were murdered in Kansas or in California and somebody drove this guy's truck the whole way across the United States? I don't know. I guess I'm thinking, what would have happened? Of course, Eugene Stiller would still be alive if he didn't walk over, but to find out what was going on. But just imagine if that doesn't happen. Imagine if it happens in the middle of the night, then everybody shows up the next day and there's this truck that's abandoned on the 10th green, and they go to check it out and they find two dead guys in the back. I'll be very interested. I hope they can solve this. But let's hope this doesn't become another Missy Beavers situation where it seems like this would be pretty easy to solve. And then, years later, we're still wondering what happened. I hope it doesn't become that. I hope that I want to hear what exactly happened here. Why was 76-year-old Paul Pearson killed? Why was Henry Valdez killed? What were a guy from California and Kansas doing in Georgia? And on top of everything else, why did the killer choose to drive onto this golf course? That is one bizarre story. Screaming says, I heard about that. Yeah. Yeah, everybody's talking about Jalik. I just don't know anything about that to comment. Becky says, drug use or alcohol make crimes illogical. Well, I have to admit, Becky, that, when you hear about... and in fact, Eric is even saying mule on the run. I have to admit to both of you that that's the first thing that came to my mind. Was this a situation where Paul Pearson was the mule and he was with these two other guys, and the one guy decided to have all the drugs and money for himself? Makes a lot of sense at this point. I will admit that I've not looked up Paul Pearson or Henry Valdez yet. It's going to be a little... Henry Valdez is probably a fairly common name, but I should, using the databases we have, I should be able to find Paul Pearson, knowing his age and knowing that he's from Kansas, be able to figure out, what business he's in. Does he have a criminal record? Would he have any reason to be in Georgia? I mean, he's 76 years old. You'd think that he would be retired at that time. Is he in vacation in Georgia? I don't know. But I do have to admit, the first thing that came to my mind was some sort of drug deal, drug running gone bad. We can't rule that out. Sweetberry, the victims from 2 other states, Cali and Kansas, could be victims of a hit. Could be. Absolutely. Think the tough part, Sweetberry, is that, will they be able to even determine where these 2 people were murdered? Their bodies were found in the back of the truck, but that doesn't mean they were murdered in Georgia. So, don't know. But it certainly caught my eye, and it seems that some of you have seen the news as well. And it's, I have to tell you, it is a crime that I've been following very closely since when it happened. So that is everything that I brought to the agenda tonight. All that is left is to talk about this Friday's disappearance. Gail is asking, I just tuned in. What's your channel about? Disappearances. That's what it's about, Gail. Thank you for tuning in. That's what we do. Unfound. Got a lot of videos on this channel, but that's what the channel is about. Missing persons cases. Live show that I'm doing right now is a little more above a buffet of things, but primarily all the videos on Unfound channel are about true crime and missing persons cases. So this Friday, we will be going to the great state of Ohio. We've covered a lot of disappearances there. Of course, just a couple months ago, we had Kelly Bruce on the program to talk about Brian Schaefer. So we're going back there to Cadiz, Ohio, Cadiz. And it is the disappearance of Shawn Antill, Antill. He disappeared on December 23rd, 2017, and the guest will be his aunt, Julie Scott. And this being that I brought up Kelly Bruce, Kelly was the person who put me in touch with Julie, and they've known each other for a while, and Kelly has been helping Shawn's, at least his father's side of his family, figure out what happened to Shawn. This is one of those cases where it's kind of like Noah Davis's. Shawn Antill led a rough life. He was in and out of jail quite a bit, probably into drugs. A lot of people are around him, same way. And in fact, just 2 weeks before he went missing, he had committed a crime with another guy, Preston Yates, and the police were looking for Shawn. But on the 23rd, Shawn and Preston were together, and the original story was that Shawn, Preston's sister, were in the car together, and they were going somewhere in Ohio on Route 250, going toward Cadiz. And Shawn said that he wanted out of the car, was having some sort of bad drug trip or something. They stopped the car. He got out. He ran off, never came back. So that was the first story. But then the very next day, after that report was filed, Preston's sister came back into police and said, no, that is not true. That did not happen. I did not see Shawn that day. So Preston was then forced to change his story and said that he and Shawn were in Preston's own vehicle and they were getting chased. And he ran off this dirt road and ran into this fence. The fence stopped them and they got out to run off. One went one direction, Preston went the other. Shawn was never seen again. And of course, Preston doesn't say who was chasing them or anything else. But the issue is there is proof that Preston's vehicle did hit that fence. So, but why wouldn't he just tell that story in the first place? We don't know. But that is the disappearance. And in fact, if you go to the Charlie Project and look this disappearance up, you will find the first version of the story, that Shawn was with Preston's sister, and they were going somewhere, and they pulled over the side of the road, and Shawn got out and ran away. But that is not that was the first story, but that is not the current story as of 2021. And this is a disappearance from late 2017. So we're quickly coming up on the 4-year anniversary. And the title of this episode is Getting the Better of, because it does seem in these types of disappearances, once again, Noah Davis and a bunch, Shanna Boydo, a bunch of disappearances like this one, Brennan Smokey, that it does feel like these people who are career criminals, who deal in drugs and are just not the greatest people on this earth, they do seem to get the better of us in these cases. It seems like they are able to do things that just do not seem possible, and they fool the rest of us. And so in this episode, at least in my summation at the end, I talk a little bit about this and what I think's going on and why this happens. So once again, Shawn Antill, Antill, from Cadiz, Ohio. The title of the episode is Getting the Better of. Happened December 23rd, 2017, and the guest is Shawn's aunt, Julie Scott, who is also in the discussion group. Gail, I just tuned in. Okay, Cadiz is where Clark Gable was born. I did not know that, Charlotte. Thank you for that factoid. Gail says Orren and Orson West missing out of Bakersfield, California, 3 and 4 years old, foul play suspected, but sightings of boys have happened. Gail, the adopted parents, lawyered up, refused to search and refused lie detector test. Gail, how recent are these disappearances of these little boys, Orren and Orson West? I have to admit that the names do not ring a bell. When did this happen? Recently? Last year? Maybe that would help any of us who want to look it up. So, what would we do tonight on this live show post Hurricane Elsa? Told you about playing some very wet disc golf this past weekend. By the way, I'm not playing in another disc golf tournament until the middle of August. It'll be nice to have some time off. Hurricane Elsa, I was unimpressed. Still doing good on my diet, on my weight. July 4th was very nice. Watching the show Loki on Disney Plus. I would encourage people to watch it. Of course, you'd have to get Disney Plus to subscribe to it first. Talked about Tom Brown quite a bit, obviously. The funny T-Mobile story, Vanessa Oren. Audio version of the newsletter tomorrow. Patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Did the audio blog today. Please check out the Find Jody podcast. For the couple latest episodes. The 628-page FOIA is getting done. I don't know when I'm going to get it, though. New video here on the YouTube channel is Unfound on the Ground, the last one from June. Also a FOIA for Rebecca Gary's disappearance that one of the think tank members has filed, and I think it's on the way to her. Talked about the Virginia parents who hid their dead son in their freezer for 2 years. Talked about the murder of a golf pro in Georgia. Very confusing case. Took some questions from Jill, Charla, Beth, and Sherry, and then finished up, as we usually do, giving you a preview of this Friday's episode, The Disappearance of Shawn Antill. That's all I got. Let me see what... within 4 months ago. They've been missing since December of last year, and I heard you mention the Charlie Project. The adopted mother, real name Jacqueline Vasquez, and she was a baby that disappeared. Her photo. This is all news to me, Gail. If you'd like to send me more information on it, if the disappearance, the rule is we have to wait until it's a year old before we cover a disappearance for the regular Friday episodes. But if you'd like to send me more information on it, please do it. unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, because I am wrapping up the show now. I've been doing it since 9. But Gail, thank you for telling us all about that. That's all I got. You'll be hearing me Friday. And that's about it. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for your contributions. Sharon, Joyce, Eric, the Super Chat contributions. Cannot thank you enough. Love talking to all of you. I continue to say I don't know why more true crime hosts don't do live shows, but I'm going to continue to do this one. Good night.